Bill trackers are really useful. Notion Formulae allow you to have fun. But Notion doesn't allow you to create repeated tasks. Or does it? At the end of this video, I will share a trick with you on how you can build formulas easier. You need to watch this entire video, otherwise you won't understand why I'm saying this. Let's start. Let's just take a simple example of bill tracking. Let's say you have 9 bills to pay every month. That includes the car lease, the mortgage, the mobile bill, the cable TV connection, the electricity bill, an internet connection, a gym membership, a credit card, and the water bill. Now let's take their due dates. Let's say they're on the 5th of the month, the 16th of the month, the 20th, the 7th, the 3rd, the 2nd, the 10th, and the 7th. Of course, in real life, you can add as many bills as you want when you get started. Let's start by creating an inline database table using the / key and typing in table. Now you want a tracker which shows you the due date, the next due, whether it's overdue or not. And to track it, you want columns from January to December to track every individual month. The next due shows January since we haven't paid any bills, but it's overdue since we are in April. Let's say you've paid all the bills for your mobile till April. Let's tick them off. See what happens. As you see, the next due date changes to May and the overdue changes to future. Now let me bring all the other bills up to date. Just a note here that I am recording on the 27th of April of 2020. This is a Monday. Notice that overdue changes to Saturday and Sunday or future as the case may be. So this overdue field is pretty dynamic depending on the day on which you're looking at it. I didn't include columns like amount due, payment method, and if it's an auto payment or not. You can easily include these fields and their properties quickly. But since it didn't involve any formulas, I haven't included this in the demo. Well, you may ask, this looks extraordinarily simple. What's the big deal? Well, here are the challenges. Every month has a different number of days. Every 4 years has a leap year. You want this bill tracker on a perpetual basis without having to tinker around formulas. Every day we are shifting our perception of overdue by just a day. And I wouldn't have remembered how I configured these formulas in a year's time. The inspiration for building out something like this came after I watched a fellow YouTuber, Nazareno, regarding the spaced repetition formula. I apologize if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. You can look up in the link above to watch that video. Let's first start out by building out the columns. I introduced a column called area to identify that it's a bill pay. So later on, you can merge this with your task database. If you have a different column name, just change it appropriately. Just a quick tip, if you change any column name, if a formula has the name of that column, that also gets changed automatically. I added a text field called due date. This makes sure that we know the due date irrespective of what the formula does to the columns. You can choose to keep it later on or delete it. Now we introduce a formula field called next due, another formula field called overdue. Then we include all the checklist fields from January to December. But wait, there's more. I have a whole bunch of columns that are hidden. First, I introduce a date field called the start date. Then I introduce 12 formula fields, DJan, DFeb, onwards to DDecember. D stands for number of days, and the next 3 letters stands for the month, as you might have guessed. Another formula field is first due, which considers the first due date of this year. Now let me explain the formula. Let's start with the simpler ones. DJan to DDecember are filled up with the number of days. For example, if I open up the formula for January, it shows 31, and so does December. But there's a catch here. Every 4 years, the number of days in February changes, right? So for February, we need to introduce a formula. That formula needs to calculate the leap year. Now you can see the formula on the screen. When I was a kid, I was taught how to easily identify a leap year. If the current year is exactly divisible by 4, it's a leap year. So I used an if condition to do the test and marked the true with 29 days. The start date field is the reference point for me to start calculating from. I just need to enter this once in a lifetime of this table, and that's it. Only enter the month of January as the start date so that the calculations are correct. If you enter February, all the dates and the formulas will be muddled up. Now let's go to the next level of complication, the overdue formula. The logic is that if the next due date returns today, then we flag it off as today. If it returns tomorrow, then it's tomorrow. And if it's before today, it's overdue. And of course, if it's after 7 days, then it's in the future. Otherwise, it flags off all the days of the week when it falls due. What we've done here is used a nested if condition. Just remember, if condition true, false as the syntax to build out this one. Every time the syntax returns a false, I'm continuing with that loop. Look up the Notion formula in the screen to familiarize yourself with it. The first due field is a calculated formula field. This brings up the start date to the current year. This is important for date calculations for next due. I could have nested this into the next due date, but that would make the formula even more complicated. Now let's look at the mother of all formulas, the next due. This is a massive nested if formula. Let's just simplify this. Let's assume that you're working in January to start explaining this formula. The basic logic is to check the January checkbox. And if it's not checked, the next due says January as the first due. Otherwise, it moves ahead by the number of days mentioned in the djan box. Now this is nested from December to January to make sure that it rolls to the previous month when the condition is false. One question I asked myself is what should I do to the formula if the latest month bill has been paid, but the earlier one has not? And I concluded that the biller typically adds the overdues and hence by paying the current month bill you become current. So I don't really have to be concerned. But it will show you a gap in that month and you can go ahead and tick the box. So now for the promise that I made at the beginning of the video. When you try and test a new formula, please follow the following rules. Always test the formula in a new column to configure it. Keep a notepad open separately in your computer. Copy and paste formulas, especially the ones that work fine. You can make all the changes to that formula in the notepad. Test the formula in parts. For example, if you're testing a complicated if condition, first break the problem into simpler parts. If you're building a nested if, first build the simple if and replace the false condition with the first if when you build the second one. In case you want to do a replacement of a property into another property, I use Microsoft Word. It does a quick find and replace command and will replace all the properties in one go. If I do the same thing in Notion, I need to replace every single one by one. At the end of every 12 months, you need to untick all the boxes so that you can start the year afresh. Did you have some fun today? Was it your first time building Notion formulas? Do comment below. If you're not yet part of this community, do consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the bell icon and stay notified of all new videos. If you like the video, consider sharing it with your friends. Stay safe, stay healthy, peace.